So welcome everyone. I am Tanya Hitchman, Director of Community Programs at ALS Texas, but y'all know me. And we are excited today to have a special guest, Cassandra Wallace. And so I have really enjoyed just visiting with Cassandra on the phone. Love her energy, her personality, and her knowledge about what we're going to be talking about today. And so we're really fortunate to have her and one of our community partners, the city of Dallas, joining us today. So Cassandra, thank you so much for taking time out. And I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and to get started with the presentation today.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me, Tanya. My name is Cassandra Wallace. I work for the City of Dallas Office of Emergency Management. I was happy to be connected with Tanya, I think by way of an email to my director, Rocky Vaz, who is the city's emergency management coordinator. I have been with the city's Office of Emergency Management since 2006, so a good bit of time. 2006, I started in an administrative position in the office, and then in 2008, I was promoted to an emergency management specialist. My niche there in the office is all things human services, community preparedness. I also manage a volunteer program called CERT, or Community Emergency Response Teams. So that's my love and my heart in the office, is just working with volunteers, working with the public, going out into the public and doing presentations such as this so that we can get folks, you know, thinking about disaster preparedness and taking care of themselves and their families and their neighbors during disasters. So I am happy to be here. And the presentation that I'm bringing to you all is actually was developed as a collaboration of emergency managers throughout the North Central Texas area. As a matter of fact, 16 counties got together and their emergency managers, and we put together a campaign that is based on disaster preparedness. And that's how this presentation was developed. So, you know, Tanya, when you asked me to present, I felt like this presentation was going to be perfect. So it's called Know What to Do. That's the campaign. And I want to just be real laid back, and I can, if it's okay, I can go through the presentation. You all can stop me and ask me questions during, or hold your questions to the end. I'm perfect either way. So with that, I will go ahead and go forward. Again, the name of this campaign is called Do You Know What to Do?
Thank you, Cassandra. And I want to say, I will be monitoring the chat. So yes, if you've got any questions, Cassandra, I'll monitor that chat for you and let you know if we've got any questions or comments, okay?
Absolutely, absolutely. So as we all know, there are skilled and caring professionals throughout, you know, the North Central Texas area who are ready to take care of us in the event of emergencies. But one of the reasons that we developed this campaign and this presentation to present to the public is we want to let you know that there are things that you need to know yourself, because if the disaster is big enough, you know, say a big F4, F5 tornado hits, first responders are delayed in taking care of what's most emergent first. So the more that we know as individuals and residents about taking care of ourselves, the better off we'll be. So there are three components to this Know What to Do campaign. The first component is to think about, you know, before emergencies, think about what could happen. What are your hazards around you, both natural and man-made? Then the second component is prepare. So how do you prepare yourselves best for those particular hazards? And then finally, after you've thought about it, after you've prepared yourself, there is and probably will be a time that you have to act. I mean, we can even reflect on, as yesterday, there was, you know, some unsettling weather in the area. So that's where the think, prepare, act comes from. So take the extra step to protect yourself. So severe weather. We've definitely seen some severe weather in the last several weeks. And as a matter of fact, like I mentioned yesterday, and then last week, We know that our neighbors to the west in Jacksboro experienced some tornadoes over there. So let's talk about severe weather. In North America, an year has 100,000 thunderstorms, 10,000 severe thunderstorms, 5,000 floods, 1,000 tornadoes, and at least 2 deadly hurricanes. So in the North Central Texas area where we are, 258 severe thunderstorm events. Severe thunderstorm we categorize as having large hail and damaging winds. 68 flash flood events and 12 tornadoes. Now, generally we have less than 1 hurricane here. Obviously, our folks at the coast definitely experience hurricanes, and a lot of times those folks will end up coming up here for sheltering, which is a big part of what we do in the City of Dallas Office of Emergency Management. So lightning safety. So if you hear thunder, you're close enough to be struck by lightning. So you want to find safe shelter immediately. You got to move to a sturdy building, obviously staying away from windows. Don't take shelter under a shed or under trees or in a convertible vehicle. It should always be a hardtop vehicle. If that is your only choice, a hardtop vehicle over a convertible is the best choice. If you don't have a sturdy shelter available, again, like I say, get in a hardtop vehicle and always keep the windows up, not down. This should be obvious, but there are a lot of times water rescues that go on after flash floodings. We want you to get out of boats and away from water. So when you're going out, having fun with your family, out on the nearby lakes, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the weather ahead of time. Although weather can sometimes creep up on us. So it's very important to get out of boats and away from water. Unplug your appliances and avoid using the telephone in an emergency. Cell phones okay, but our corded phones are not okay. Flood safety. So I think we've all probably heard this campaign, turn around, don't drown. Most of us listen, but some of us don't. Like I said, our public safety responders are still responding after flash flooding, where they're having to rescue people who are driving directly into water. And it's even more of an issue at night when you can't necessarily see the water. So you'll want to get out of areas that are subject to flooding, like dips, low areas, canyons, washes, and things like that. Avoid your already flooded and high velocity flow areas. Don't attempt to cross a flowing stream of water, that is. We have several low-lying roadways here in the North Central Texas area. And most of the time we get to know those. So you want to, again, avoid those places. Never drive through flooded roadways in case the roadbed is no longer intact. If your vehicle stalls, what you need to do is get out of that vehicle immediately and seek higher ground. Be cautious at night, like I was saying, when it's harder to recognize flood dangers. Don't camp or park your vehicle along streams and washes, particularly during known threatening condition times. So health safety. If weather conditions are prime for a storm, obviously you want to move your cars, your boats, your recreational vehicles, lawn, patio, and furniture into a safe, more covered area. During a storm, you'll want to seek shelter. Hail of any size can be dangerous when it's pelted in high winds. Surfaces can become slick because we know what hail is. It's little tiny balls of ice. So you want to use caution when you're outside. And if you're driving in a hailstorm, you want to find a place to pull over. You'll turn your car so that the hail is hitting the windshield, because the windshield is the most protected piece of safety glass. The hail could break the glass in any of the other windows in your car. Tornado safety. So if you're in your home or your building, you want to move to your pre-designated shelter, such as a basement. So pre-designated meaning we as citizens need to take an assessment of our homes and decide where we are going to go if there's a severe weather in the area, and if we're notified by media and public safety officials that something is going to happen. So again, Not many basements here in the North Central Texas area. There are a few, but other than that, if there is a closet on the lower floor, an interior closet, if there is a bathroom, preferably no windows, that should be your designated safe place. Like the next paragraph said, if underground shelter is not available, move to an interior room or hallway on the lowest floor and get under a sturdy piece of furniture if possible. We always have people in apartments ask, you have second and third floor apartments. I always tell people on those floors, get to know your neighbors on the lower floors so that if something severe enough happens, that you're able to seek shelter in your neighbors' lower floor apartments if you can. And again, stay away from windows because with the high pressure and high winds, the windows can burst. Extreme heat. We definitely have those problems here in Texas. You want to stay out of the sun. Obviously, use sunscreen of at least a SPF 15 or higher. I actually use an SPF 50. If that tells you anything, always be careful. And just because the sun is not out does not mean the sun is not out. The sun is always, the UV rays are always peeking out, even when it's gray skies. Stay hydrated. Drink plenty of non-alcoholic fluid and caffeine-free fluids when you're outside. And insulate. Install your window air conditioner snugly so that the outdoor air is not getting in around those. Check air conditioning ducts for proper insulation and weather strip your doors and window sills to keep your cool air inside your home. So help prevent drought. Water your lawn only when necessary and by adhering to your local water restrictions that we have. Help prevent wildfires. We are having some issues with wildfires as you all have seen and heard in the news. Respect those no burn days. Avoid fires. Dispose of your cigarettes properly. Dispose of hot charcoal from your grills in a non-flammable container or hose them down before you're dumping, making sure that that all the coals are out. So our local hazards that we talk about here in the North Central Texas area. So spot your hazards, know what they are. Industrial chemicals. We have plenty of industrial chemical facilities in the North Central Texas area. There are biological hazards here in the North Central Texas area. Nuclear and radiological hazards. Obviously, we have interstates that run through that transport hazardous materials. Right in your own homes, you have household chemicals that people are keeping in their garages and under their kitchen sinks. Epidemics and pandemics. I don't know if we thought very much about this prior to COVID-19 taking over our lives, but we definitely consider those a hazard. Carbon monoxide poisoning in your home. We hope that you have carbon monoxide detectors in your home. Workplace and school shootings. That's something that has obviously become very prominent across the country. Gas well and pipelines. We definitely have those running through the North Central Texas area. Terrorism. That's both domestic and international terrorism threats that we have to think about. Traveling during the holidays that could have a terrorism threat that goes along with it. Your holiday hazards. I think we want to think about when we say holiday hazards, we think about live Christmas trees and putting lights on the trees and the trees catching fire and just how quickly that can happen and take over your home. And any 911 emergency in general. And again, house fires. This slide just encompasses many of the hazards that we have identified here in the North Central Texas area. So hazardous materials, stay aware of your surroundings. What is around you? What facilities are around you that possibly have hazardous materials? Use your senses to help you decide how you're going to act. When you go outside, are you seeing something unfamiliar? Do you see a gas cloud? Do you smell something that's different or sharp odor? Did you hear something that's an explosion? You know, anytime you see or hear any of this, you first want to call 911 so that 911 can direct you. But just always be aware. Follow directions from officials and the media who we are in close contact with during events about sheltering in place, which means staying in your home or workplace, or whether you should evacuate, depending on the emergency. So gas wells and pipelines. There's typically little or no warning with incidents involving gas wells and pipelines. Because of this, it's critical that you're prepared in the event of an emergency. So prepared ahead of time. So the do's and don'ts as it relates to gas wells and pipelines. Leave the area immediately on foot. Warn others in the area. Refrain from activities that could cause heat sparks. And like I was saying before, notify 911 of the leak when you reach safety. I would kind of tend to notify 911 immediately so that you know they can help you to decide what your next steps should be. Don't light a match, start an engine, or switch electrical equipment. So that's why they say leave on foot. And attempt, it says don't attempt to use a cell phone. Honestly, on this one, I'm not sure if that's something we can avoid. You know, I would definitely use a cell phone indoor if you're ever faced with something like this, rather than outdoor. And the reason for that is cell phones can potentially cause a spark. Don't drive into a vapor cloud, and don't make contact with any escaping material. Some products can be toxic or corrosive. So terrorism. Develop a disaster plan in your home and your workplace. Make sure you have an emergency supply kit, and we're going to get to emergency supply kits later on. Identify an internal room in your home or workplace that you can shelter in and block out contaminated air in case of a chemical or biological attack. And blocking that air out is, you know, shutting off the air ducts, whether that's in your home or in your workplace. In the case of a nuclear attack, your three best tools are time, distance, and shielding to minimize your exposure to any radioactive material. You want to follow directions again from public safety officials and the media who's there to help you. Stay alert and stay informed at all times in these events. So mass violence. Mass violence is, you know, like we were talking about workplace and school shootings. Be aware, remain calm and quiet. Be aware of your environment and any possible dangers that you may have. Take note of all the exits in any facility that you visit. So I've become really good at that, you know, in recent years. Even when I'm going to restaurants, when I go in, I'm casing the place, if you will, trying to see if something happened, where would be my nearest exits. If you're unable to leave the area, you'll want to block and secure the door. And as a last resort, protect yourself and attempt to take an active shooter down, particularly as a group. So epidemics and pandemics, again, back to that emergency supply kit. Make sure that you have an emergency supply kit that is ready in the event that you have to shelter in place. Educate yourself about types of epidemics and how they may affect you. Follow directions from the officials again about whether you should shelter in place or whether you should evacuate your building. Practice healthy habits that protect you from others later, like washing your hands, covering coughs and sneezes, obviously masking now, and staying home from work or school if you're sick. We learned a lot about this over the last couple of years. So preparing yourself, a little preparation can make all the difference in the world. Your emergency supply kit. We all should have an emergency supply kit, both at home and in your workplace or wherever you're going to be. Also, I say your car. We all probably have the beginnings, at least, of an emergency supply kit in our car, like the tools that you need for a flat tire. You should have blankets and things like that. We're going to get more into that on the next slide. You want to create a communications plan. How will, as a family, or as you and your coworkers, if you're in the workplace, how will you communicate with each other? How will you, what if you get out and you've left your cell phone? You want to decide how you will communicate if something happens. How will you care for those with functional needs, both in the workplace and, when you're at home? So are you aware of your neighbors who might need help in evacuating if need be? These are things that homeowners associations should be thinking about when you have your homeowners association meetings, your crime watch meetings. All of these things should be thought and planning for your pets. I know whatever happens with me, that's what's going to happen with my pets. Do not leave your pets behind. And in your emergency kits, think about your pets. If you're putting food and water in there for yourself, you need food and water for your pets as well. Register for local alerts through your these apps. There are multiple apps on your cell phone or that are available on your cell phone for you to get local weather and emergency alerts. And if you're not familiar with the NOAA All Hazards Weather Radio, we highly recommend getting one of those, and you can just Google that, NOAA All Hazards Weather Radio. That is a weather radio that is battery operated. Well, actually they come where it can be battery operated and solar powered. You'll want one of those in your home because you're able to set it for your particular area. And say that an emergency happens at night, a tornado happens at night, this radio will power on and give you an alert. And again, you can get those same kinds of things through your cell phone. This radio will alert you through the National Weather Service that something is going on. Many people rely on the warning sirens. People are calling them tornado sirens. They're actually outdoor warning sirens. Those are designed not for people that are indoors. So we all know that storms can happen at night when we're asleep, but we cannot rely on those outdoor warning sirens to necessarily penetrate the walls of our home and wake us up at night. So that's why we highly recommend a NOAA All Hazards Weather Radio, which I call an indoor siren. So back to the supply kit that I was talking about. Again, food and water for yourself, for your pets. You obviously want non-perishable foods in that supply kit. You want high protein items. There's, protein bars that we highly recommend putting in there. This picture shows cans of soup. That's great as long as you either have a can opener for that or they're the pop top kind. And then your water, you need at least 72 hours. And they're even talking about more than that now. And if we think back to February of last year, how long that cold weather event lasted, I would highly recommend 72 hours plus worth of water for yourself and each of your family members. Always have a first aid kit at home and in your emergency supply kit. And the radio and phone picture, I talked about a NOAA all hazards weather radio, your cell phone. So not just your cell phone, but you want cell phone chargers. You also should consider cell phone battery packs. I have a couple different battery packs that I purchased. So I have them at home. I carry them in my purse. Always have, some forms of redundancy when it comes to your communication. Cash and IDs, make sure that you have those, handy. One thing that I think that we don't think about, if all systems go down, if it's an emergency of some kind, you want to make sure that you have cash because we can't necessarily rely on the credit and debit card systems to work. So always keep, a bit of cash on hand in case of an emergency. So get ready. Again, water, 1 gallon of water per person per day for at least 3 days, maybe more. Food, at least a 3-day supply of non-perishable foods. I spoke about the can opener for food if you don't have the pop top cans. Flashlights with extra batteries, your first aid kit in case there's an emergency. A whistle is always handy to have, depending on the emergency event that you're in. If you need a whistle to get help, dust mask to help filter contaminated air if that's what's going on. Plastic sheeting and duct tape to help you in a shelter-in-place situation, possibly. And again, that radio, that battery-powered or hand crank solar powered radio. A NOAA weather radio is what we recommend, that has a tone alert, and make sure you have extra batteries for that as well. Your personal sanitation, moist towelettes, baby wipes, adult wipes, garbage bags, and plastic ties for, you'll be surprised if the situation is that big and bad, what you will have to do to take care of your personal sanitation. Small tools.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Did you say something?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted at first, but we have a question in the chat, and I have been putting some comments in the chat that I'll send a link to a document for those living with ALS and specific things in preparing for that. And I put in the chat to make sure that you have at least a week's supply of all of your medications. And if you have a feeding tube, that you've got that nutrition enough, for a week set aside, that should you need that as well. But we have a question in the chat box from Charlie that says, will the KN95 masks work?
Absolutely, the KN95 mask will work. We highly recommend those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Local maps, I know I myself get away from, I rely heavily on technology. We should still know how to read a regular old, paper map for navigation, because we cannot fully rely on technology when if all systems are down. And like I was speaking about cash, in case your ATMs are unavailable or something prevents the use of credit or debit cards, to have a little cash on hand. So ACT, the third and final component of this campaign, you are your own best protection when it comes to emergencies. You have personal responsibility. Like I said, the first responders, we're here to help you, but if something, you are your own first line of defense. Volunteer service training. I was speaking about the CERT program, Community Emergency Response Team. That's a program that is sponsored in the city of Dallas through our office, the Office of Emergency Management. It's a basic disaster preparedness class. Our class is about 20 hours long. We generally offer it 2.5 Saturdays. That first 2 Saturdays is a mix of lecture and hands-on training. And then that final Saturday, half a Saturday, is an exercise or drill that puts all of those topics and concepts into place. So we highly recommend taking some type of training like that. Our program is both a mix of a catch and release program. So we have a lot of people that come and just get that basic disaster training, and they go on with their lives. And then we have a full out, well-developed volunteer program where those CERT volunteers help us in times of disaster. That's very important. There's also, medical volunteer programs called the Medical Reserve Corps. So there's all kinds of different volunteer service training that relates to disaster preparedness that will help you in your personal preparedness effort. Citizen Corps is the federal umbrella that those programs fall under, the CERT and the MRC program. There's a Crime Watch program that falls under Citizen Corps, so there's several. Next bullet is the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service. We call it RACES, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with ham radio or amateur radio. That is highly dependent upon in emergencies. When the phone lines go down, our RACES officers are there. When we do have severe weather, they bring up what's called a RACES net, where they're all on a network, and you have on-ground folks out there with eyes on the ground letting us know what's going on and reporting back into our emergency operations center. Skywarn Storm Spotter. So again, those people that are on the ground and they're out there and they're reporting back what's going on. Neighborhood watch programs, again, that falls under that third bullet under Citizen Corps. There are neighborhood watch programs that you can get involved in. And then the National Crime Prevention Council. So these are all ways that you can get involved. And if you want to know any more information on any of these programs, you can definitely contact me, and I can go in depth and also provide you with the additional resources. So after a disaster, so sheltering in place. So depending on the disaster, you'll want to decide whether you shelter in place or whether you're going to evacuate. Obviously, if it's severe weather or a tornado, you probably want to shelter in place. So that means you want to stay where you are instead of going out into the severe weather. Now, same thing if there is some type of gas leak. Again, you'll want to call 911 to get your best up to the minute information. But a lot of times you'll want to stay, and again, like I said, close off the ducts and stay in place. Evacuating, that comes into place a lot of times with things like hurricanes. Obviously, we've seen a lot of that evacuation taking place. So it really highly depends on what kind of emergency it is, whether you shelter in place or you evacuate. And then disaster recovery. Basically, disaster recovery is talking about what happens after the disaster and how you recover. Oh goodness, I'm sorry. Let's see. And let's just say because severe weather and tornadoes are very prominent here in our area, getting your home ready for returning home, working with your insurance companies and seeking disaster assistance is very important, both local assistance and federal assistance through FEMA. So here's some resources. There's the county emergency management directory that I can share with you all. The Texas Division of Emergency Management is basically the state level of what we do. So the State Emergency Management Office. Obviously, most of us should be familiar with FEMA, or the Federal Emergency Management Association, or agency, I'm sorry. And then the Department of Homeland Security. They oversee, actually, they oversee grant funds that helps us to keep our communities safe. And then knowwhattodo.com. Again, that I spoke about this collaboration of us emergency managers in the 16 counties here in the North Central Texas area. This Know What to Do campaign, you can get more information at knowwhattodo.com. And that's exactly what this presentation was based off of. So it's a great website. We just redesigned it just before COVID. So I recommend you all take a look for more information there as it relates to disaster preparedness. So again, this was the Think, Prepare, Act campaign, or Know What to Do. And with that, do we have any questions for me about this or disaster preparedness in general, or the Office of Emergency Management and how we can help you all in the ALS Association? I'm happy to answer.
Cassandra, while we're waiting for anything in the chat or anyone to speak up, I want to not forget to say thank you again for joining us. This is helpful for all of us. We all need a reminder, and I know for our ALS community, it's all of these things in addition to kind of having that bag ready in case you have to leave quickly. You've got these things together too. So these are just really great reminders for the big umbrella and specific things too.
Yes, and that's what I always say when I do these presentations. You know, you might find a nugget or two in here that you didn't know, but it's really, we like to get out there and do these presentations to, you know, just bring back to the forefront what you probably already know, but, you know, to remind you again about your emergency kit, to put your meds in there, to put your foods and things in there. This, you know, some of this stuff is common sense, but we forget about it when we get going in our daily lives. So we want to keep this on our minds and in our thoughts. So thank you, Tanya, for having me here and allowing me to present to you all.
Hi, Cassandra and Tanya. This presentation is very good. I'd appreciate. I have a question, just guidance. I'm on a breathing machine which need power all the time. It has a little bit battery. You know, for loss of electricity and what can we do preparation? One of the things is about generators. Any recommendation on that kind of you know, area?
So Roy, what I think I heard you say is I think you were reminding us all that it's important to have a generator in your home. Did I hear you say?
Yeah, and just
Yes.
when people are using with a medical need, breathing machine and other electronic equipments may be needed. So that's also should be included in the planning.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for bringing that point up. Yes, that is very important. Any other questions?
One thing I was going to mention, my husband retired as the emergency management coordinator here in Lubbock. And
Okay.
he also worked for A&M for 15 months, and he was in the State Operations Center mostly, off and on during his professional life.
Mm-hmm.
But
so this is not new to you, all this stuff.
No, but it's a good reminder, because he's getting to where he can't speak, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And when we built our home, we built a safe room in it, according to the tech professors that created them.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't ever think we'd be in a position that he wouldn't be walking or anything. So now
Mm-hmm.
we have a safe room, but he can't get in there in his power
Mm-hmm.
chair.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's been a little worrisome for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to mention on the NOAA weather radio, those came about also while he was in there, and people can get those programmed just for the counties that they want to hear. They don't have to listen to everywhere.
That
And
is
so I was
exactly
just going to
right.
bring that up, because
Mm-hmm.
when we first got ours, I thought, holy moly,
You're getting everything.
Yes. And so that's just something I wanted to plug, that they can get
Yes.
them to where they just monitor where they want.
Yes, that's exactly right. So yes, they can be programmed to pick up just your local weather emergencies, so that you're not getting pinged every time the weather is going off, and you've got nice, beautiful blue skies and sunshine outside. So that's a great point, Charlene.
Well, especially at night.
Yes, exactly.
We had ours programmed for, of course, Lubbock County, and then our surrounding counties, neighboring ones, just because you never know. But we got rid of some of them.
Yes, yeah, they
But
can be kind of troublesome.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation.
Yes, and thank you for your addition, Charlene.
Charlotte, the quick question is that you limit the area by county or by zip code?
Ours was by county. Is that still how they are, Cassandra?
I think they can program them by county or by zip code, Roy.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Okay.
But again, you can Google NOAA, that's NOAA weather radio. I mean, you can pick them up just about anywhere. Walgreens, Walmart, CVS, your local Target, your local stores. They're not, and Amazon, of course, they have everything. So you can pick it up from there.
What did we do before we had Amazon?
Exactly. I go there first it's weird for everything. I'll do Amazon before I walk out my front door to go to a store. It's crazy.
One more question. We see some ads here and there about food, non-perishable food for long-term kind of deal. I don't know if that may be a link you may be adding to the cheat sheet.
Yes, non-perishable food. Yeah, I think I mentioned that in the presentation. Non-perishables that are high in protein, not high in sugar. That's very important. They have things called meals ready to eat, or MREs are what we call them. You can also Google that and find more information. That's those are actually full out meals, like a TV tray that is packed for long term. So that's a good point, Roy. Again, choose high protein. I mean, I'd love to fill my emergency kit with candy bars, but that's not it's not good for you long term.
And the again, the follow-up email I send will have a link to a post from the National ALS office on emergency preparedness, and that also includes some additional links for residents with disabilities. And so you'll have some more information. And again, this is just things for you to keep handy and just to be mindful of.
That's great. And
very helpful, Tanya, as usual. Really appreciate.
And I hope you'll include me on that email, Tanya. That'd be great. There
Absolutely.
Could be information. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I definitely will. And everyone in all of our friends in our ALS Texas community, you know that you can reach out to our entire team if you've got any questions. You've got a phenomenal care services team throughout the state that you can ask questions to. You can reach out to me. And if we don't have the answers, we know that we can go to Cassandra. So we have you covered no matter what the question is.
Yes, I love that.
And again, Cassandra, thank you. And thank you everyone that joined us today. We'll get this recording out to you this week. It may be on Friday, but we'll get it out to you this week for sure.
Thank you all. Thank you, Tanya, for inviting me. It was such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We appreciate all the information. And thank you everybody for joining us. You're leaving a little bit more prepared with some more tools in that toolbox, and that's what we want. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Tomorrow.
All right. Bye, Charlie.